Hey y'all, it's Alicia and welcome back to Alicia's Crafty Hoplop. It is Monday evening, y'all, and I have just finished my official work day, but I am far from being done work today. My students are having a difficult time adjusting to the new interface, and so I need to make some modifications. Tonight I'm going to record some lecture style videos done very much the way that we make these sorts of videos for one another, and that's just to help accommodate their learning styles. It's interesting to me. I'm someone who grew up, I'm 49, I've told you that before. So I grew up with a typewriter. I had to pass grade 10 typing class, and I typed 90 words a minute. I'm a messy typer, meaning I always have typos. So until I got to college, I was constantly like using whiteout and having to do corrections. Rather than slowing down, I just kept the speed and just did the corrections with whiteout. But in college, they came out with what they called an electronic typewriter. And I don't know if all of you or any of you remember this, but it was like a tiny little LCD screen that let you see like a sentence at a time. And for me, that was like life-changing because I could type a sentence, check it for a typo, fix it, and move on and not have to retype my essays anymore. And I was so excited by this. And then we had like cell phones, right? And the first cell phone, if you all remember this, was like bigger than this converter and super chunky and heavy. And I cannot believe I even carried that thing around. It was so heavy. I must have had like giant purses because I don't know how I put that in my purse. Like today, even, my cell phone is this big. A lot of people have a smaller phone than this. But, I mean, these are huge, right? So I didn't really learn computer technology until I was in my 20s. Not really. And when I was working, yes, we used computers, but they weren't advanced like they are today. And they certainly weren't intelligent computers that made things easy for you. By the time I hit 30, I was computer literate. But that came later in life. These are students who grew up where they learned how to program a cell phone before they learned how to read. So it astounds me a little that they are struggling with this interface, this new interface. But what's a little bit heartbreaking is that they're starting to be very disheartened. And some are brave enough to articulate that they feel like this is going to be a throwaway term. And as an educator, when you hear a student say that, it's heartbreaking. Now, fortunately, I told you all I have my direct boss is wonderful. And he is always interested and invested in the best interests of the students. So we are not, as professors, forced to use one system. In some institutions where you work as an educator, you're basically told, look, this is the system we're using, whether the students or you like it or not. I work for a school that is much more flexible than that and for a boss who is absolutely motivated to meet student needs. So we are not limited to that interface that the students are not liking. And the interface, folks, is very much like what a live is like. The only difference is that you can see all the participants on video and you can hear them unless they mute themselves, and they have access to chat where they can also type what they have, like if they have a question or a comment. It's their choice if they speak it or type it. It's a lot for an educator to manage if you haven't been trained or if you're not practiced. So I'm sure that there are professors this last 2 weeks who are very overwhelmed and having a hard time figuring out how to manage the chat and the conversation and everything else. If they're a YouTuber, well, it's super easy because if you've done a live, then you know how to do this. Or if you've gone through the training like I have, you'd know how to do this. But a lot of these professors haven't. And so for them, I'm sure this is very overwhelming. What's surprising, though, is that students who grew up on technology are the ones who are struggling with the interface. That amazes me, actually. But I want to meet their needs. So the reason that I'm going to have a longer work day and I'm going to have to work tonight is because I've come up with what I call a multi-tiered platform where I'm going to limit the lives. I'm going to make them only a tiny portion of our week. So I'm going to make them a very small portion, and instead I'm going to record videos very much like I do here or we do for a tutorial, where I'm going to deliver the lecture via a video that they can watch at their own convenience. Don't forget, some of my students went home and got trapped there, so they are in a different continent too. So there's time zone differences also that they have to navigate. So imagine if you have to go to your class and it's 2 o'clock in the morning your time. Yeah, I mean, I know they're young and they can adapt, but I can understand why some of this is just feeling a little much for them. We have to remember, too, these are 17, 18, 19-year-olds for the most part, right? And that's really tough for them. But even my seniors are having trouble. Even my seniors. And those are fourth-year students. And some of my seniors this is their second degree. So they're in their, they're 24 years old and they're having trouble. So I've come up with a new plan and I proposed it to the students and they are in favor of it. My boss thinks it's great, where I'm going to do teeny bit of the live, more lecture style on video where they can watch it when they choose to. I've created a chat room where they're going to share their projects and we can communally go on there and chit chat with each other and leave comments. And I'm also going to do one-on-one video conferences with them. Now, it means a lot more work for me. There's no question. By hour, I'm going to be working harder this term than ever before. However, I think this is a way to guarantee that students don't consider this a throwaway term, because that's sort of what students are whispering. And as an educator, like I said, that's just heartbreaking. And classes are so expensive. It's like each class that I teach costs the student about $300 a class. Can you imagine? That's like taking a $300 purse and flushing it down a toilet. It's terrible. And I also don't want to see them throw away their education. They don't realize it yet, but this is one of the most valuable experiences of their lives. And also one of the only times in their lives where they're able to just invest in themselves and their development, right? And not everybody gets this opportunity. It's a privilege. So I want to come up with a system that's going to work for them, but it does mean that your girl has to do a lot more work tonight. That said, somehow, yesterday I forgot to do the Crafty Love draw. I do not know how that slipped my mind. I think that, here's a little truth about myself. If I don't get done on my list what I set to do, I get upset with myself. It's a shortcoming that I have in my personality. It is. My husband says it all the time. I'm very hard on myself. I have very high expectations of self. And when I was diagnosed with this illness and they warned me about how it would impact my energy and everything else, my greatest concern is that I would struggle to not be able to do what I seek to do each and every day, and that would be difficult for me. And it was difficult for me. It still is. So when I had those rough couple of days and I didn't do a whole bunch of productive things, I was super frustrated with myself, like super frustrated. So yesterday and today were hyper productive days where I proudly checked off my list and accomplished a whole lot, if not everything. And that made me feel great. Except somehow I forgot to do the Crafty Love draw. So I do need to come back on later today and do that. And we have our secret giveaway draw to do tonight too. The other thing, and it's an exciting thing, is that I have In Love Arts project shares to share with you. And I'd like to do them separately because if you remember, I ordered each die for a different segment of our crafty community here. You know, some I ordered for shabby, some I ordered for vintage, mixed media, some I ordered for Maggie Holmes, All Heart folks, some I ordered for clean crafters. And while it would be easier to just make one big long video, I think I'd prefer to do them individually so that each community can take a look at it. Now, you may want to see them all just because you're curious, but I want to give an opportunity for folks, let's say Maggie makers, if they don't want to watch the shabby, then they don't have to. So I better start sharing those because we got about a week's worth of them. And that's something, it's also something nice to share with you. I've really loved working on them. So, and I have some favorites, and I'm curious to see which one are your favorites too. I'm so glad y'all like those glue tip bottles. Me too. Me too. And again, incredible bargain at that price. Incredible bargain. If you have not seen the BB Craft Design Team package, you want to check it out because without question, those glue tip bottles are super exciting. And I can't wait to show you how they work because you know I've already tested them. Yeah, of course I did. Yeah. And I think you're going to be so glad when I show you how they operate. So folks, your girl's going to have a cup of coffee. I know this is going to sound strange to a lot of you who don't drink coffee after 4 because it would keep you up all night. I can have a coffee right before bed. Yep, I can. I'm going to have some coffee and then I'm going to have a little rest and then I'm going to come back on and do that. But before I go off and do that, I have something exciting to share with you. Look what came in the mail. Okay, so can you see what it is? Yeah, it's a weird quirky Alice. So I am so excited. I did not know about this oddball collection from Stamping Bella. It's a good thing I didn't know about it. I would have wanted to order a whole bunch. I was looking for some Ella stamps and I came across this on Etsy from a shop called Barb's Craft Store. And, you know, sometimes I find Etsy overpriced, you know, and I get it. People go out, they buy stuff, they mark it up. but you know what? I don't like to overpay for things. You all know that. But this was reasonably priced because Stamping Bella stamps are pricey. They're considered to be a good quality stamp. So I was like, well, that's a good price for it. And I had never seen it. So I was so excited. And I think I ordered this on Friday and it came today. Now I know I broke the rule. I'm supposed to wait 48 hours. But I wiped it down with alcohol and I cut it open carefully. And I'm just super excited to share it with you. I want to know from Susan Tootsie Tucker, from Crafty Michelle, from Lisa Made New to Create, from Heather, from any of you, Miss P, Whimsical Endeavors. That's 5 of you I can think of. Those of you who like Alice in Wonderland, what do you think of her? I mean, she's a bit of a weirdo, but I like that about her. It's like a really fun Alice. And what I also like, see how she's holding this like minuscule, it says Drink Me on it. There's also a slightly larger one, and that's a separate stamp, and I'm going to use that to make little mini embellishments. So I loved it. I'm not sure why do they always put mushrooms with Alice? Is it because of the caterpillar? Because I can never figure out why there are always mushroom stamps when they have an Alice stamp. Maybe you all know. But anyway, I'm very excited about this. So again, I got this at Barb's Craft Store. It was reasonably priced on Etsy. So if you're looking for maybe some discontinued stamps or things that have gone off the market, she's a good place to check out. And again, I ordered this Friday and I got it today. Isn't that amazing? All right, y'all. Your girl's going to go take a much-deserved rest, then make a couple of lecture videos for her students, and then I'll be back on to do our Crafty Love Draw and our hidden giveaway winner from yesterday's project share. I hope that whatever you did today, I hope it was something super creative. I've only watched a couple of the videos because it was a long work day. I did watch a couple on my lunch break. I always do when I can. And I did catch Lorraine Barton's, and she got to the DT today, folks. But they are going to be, unfortunately, closing down her neighborhood and imposing stricter conditions like they have here. And that's just because people aren't following the rules. And so the virus is spreading in that area. So she did sneak out today to the DT, and I both chuckled and crossed my finger at you because I don't like anyone stepping outside for anything unless they have to, or unless they're an essential worker. Lastly, I want to draw your attention to something that's very important. It was thanks to Susan Tootsie Tucker that I became aware of it. But there is a woman on YouTube, Suzanne, I believe her name is, I'll put her channel down below, who is collecting handmade cards for frontline workers. I think specifically she was referencing nurses, but I hope that she's sending them to all frontline workers. Well, we know in our craft family we have quite a few nurses, right? Marcie, aren't you a nurse? And Susan Althaus always knows when I'm sick, coming down with something, or struggling. And I believe you're also a nurse, right, Susan? Somehow she knew on Thursday night, folks. I'm still shocked by it. It's every single time she notices when I'm not feeling well. And that's remarkable that you notice. I mean, even that one got past my mom didn't notice this time, but you did. The truth is, not only did I have a rough time at the pharmacy all over the weekend, I was nervous because I had developed a sore throat. I'd actually texted Heather. I had some symptoms that were very hard to tell if they were coronavirus symptoms or my autoimmune disease. So you all know I'm not on my immunosuppressants, right? And my illness is kind of having a field day because of that. So I'm having all sorts of small, annoying complications. An example would be like, I got this, I can show it to you, like this weird thing on my arm. Can I show it to you? I don't even know if I can. It's just like, see that little thing? And it's like a small abscess. That's from scleroderma. And normally when I'm on my medicine, I don't get these. But I'm prone to them. It just means I don't get enough oxygen to the rest of my body. So like all sorts of strange things are happening. So Susan noticed on Thursday that I didn't look well. And she was right. And I just wasn't sure. So I texted with Heather. And Heather was like, yes, sore throat is part of the, because it's not listed as part of the symptoms. But I couldn't figure out if it was because I was wearing a mask. And I had some other symptoms. And the other problem is that I often have fever with my illness. So I often have a low-grade fever. It's just part of dealing with the disease. So it was very hard for me to tell if it was virus or autoimmune. But Susan was right. I was not feeling well, and I struggled all weekend. Thank goodness it seems to just be my autoimmune. And chatting with, my doctor, the reality is my disease needs medicine, and right now I can't be on it. So I have to expect that there's going to be some rough days. And this weekend was certainly I had a couple of rough days emotionally because of the pharmacy and a couple of rough days health-wise. But I'm raising this because I didn't say a word. And Susan Althaus noticed and left me a comment about it, which I only responded to today. But I was laughing because she always catches when I don't feel well. Even if I don't say a word about it, she knows. So I'm just going to remind you, Susan is also a nurse. Right, Susan? You are a nurse, aren't you? And Glam Nurse must be a nurse too, right? In fact, we know she is. So that's 3 nurses right in our community that probably could use our support right now. So I'm really glad that Susan Tootsie Tucker raised this. I'm going to put Suzanne's channel down below, a direct link to that video. If you have some time, it would be great to make cards for these frontline workers. They are risking their lives to save ours. They really are. And, there's stories, horrible stories about these frontline workers coming off late from a shift and coming, especially here in New York, and I understand from Crafty and Michelle in England too, coming off their shift and going to try to buy food, and there's nothing on the shelf. So, not only are we risking their lives, we haven't protected them either. So it would be great to send them some kind of support, and I think that's terrific. So I will put that down below. And thank you, Susan, for bringing that to our attention. You always have your eye on the right kind of ball, girlfriend. Always. All right, y'all. I'm going to go take that well-deserved little rest, and then I will be back on later to do the draws and maybe a project share. I hope whatever you did today, I hope it was something super creative, especially because I'm going to have fun watching your videos tonight. All right, y'all. Take real good care, and I'll see you soon.